All right, welcome everybody. Our life as software developers is tricky. On the one hand, applications grow in size and complexity, while on the other hand, we should develop new features as quickly as possible. So essentially, we constantly need to balance between the time we spend to develop new features versus the quality that we deliver. In this talk, I'll present you a solution to these challenges and show you how you can work more efficiently and more productive with Qt, so you can spend less time working on higher quality Qt applications. And all this based on the learnings that we have achieved in the last 10 years from working more than 200 software projects with Qt for mobile, desktop, and embedded platforms. So let's break down the development process into pieces so we can learn how and where exactly we can save time and be more efficient with Qt development. Well, first, we start with writing code, right? Then we hit save, then we compile the application, deploy it to a target device, and then we test the code that we've actually written. So I'm going to show you tips for each of these steps in the development process and show you tips for each of these separately. But let's now start with the first two steps, with compile and the deploy steps. So whenever you compile an application, a Qt application, this takes a while, from 10 seconds up to 5 minutes. How long exactly? It really depends on the size of the application that you're having, so how many code lines that you're having, how many dependencies your project has, and then, of course, also which target device that you are deploying to. This usually works quite fast on desktop PC, but deployment to a mobile device takes long, and even longer takes usually deployment to embedded devices. This can even take up to 5 minutes or even more for bigger projects. So what do you actually do during this time that you're waiting for deployment? Well, most developers tend to do something else and in between. And what I know from my personal experience is that whenever you know you need to wait that long, what happens that I start coding on a different place in the code. And at the time that deployment is finished, you actually don't remember what you wanted to test in the first place. Sounds familiar? Or even worse, if you think, okay, this takes a minute or two, I just quickly check my emails or check Slack if there's any new messages. And this is even worse because it brings you totally out of the tunnel. And what this happens, it makes you lose focus. What happens then in your brain is that you do a context switch. And there's a lot of research studies that have shown that it takes 24 minutes to get back into a task where you have been stopped before or interrupted before. So essentially, what we should really try to focus on is to limit the time and minimize the distractions that we can have, and so to limit the time that it needs for this compiling and deployment steps. But actually, the opposite is happening, because when you're testing, for example, for multiple screen sizes or multiple target platforms, different devices at once, then this is going to be multiplied. And even worse, this is not just happening once a day, but it might be happening 100 times a day or 200 times a day, that you do this repeatedly and repeated it all over. And so this multiplies as well. So we came up with a solution to this problem, which is called FELGO code reloading, which allows you to cut down and shrink this whole deployment and compiling step down to 2 seconds, with the huge advantage that this happens simultaneously and works simultaneously for all connected devices at once. So how does this work? That's a standalone application that works together with Qt Creator. It's nicely integrated into Qt Creator. You can also use it with Visual Studio or any other IDE. Also works with Qt Design Studio or 3D Studio. And the way this works is that the code reloading solution tracks whenever you change anything in code in your QML files. And whenever a change is detected, what happens next is that all the connected devices are updated instantly. So as you can see here on this example, we are removing this image component here, hit save, and there's no compiling process or whatever, but all the different devices connected are updated simultaneously at the same time. On the left-hand side, there's a Windows application running. In the middle, there's an iOS device, and on the right-hand side connected is an Android device. You can even connect your embedded devices with that. Really cool thing is all devices same time updating. There is, however, one disadvantage of this solution, which is that you always start fresh at the new application state whenever you do a reload. So basically, you're starting at the main QML entry point every time. So what usually happens is at development and testing that you either isolate one component that you want to test and like simulate the path to this component, or that you need to repeat all the steps that you get to this point that you wanted to test every time over and over again. So we have solved this problem. It was quite tricky to do. It took us 1.5 or 2 years almost, and a lot of fiddling right in the QML engine. And this solution is called hot code reloading. And what this is doing is that it saves the state where you have been before, and you can continue exactly where you have been before. So in comparison, on the left-hand side here, we have a live reload version, and on the right-hand side, hot reload. And what happens here is that we are navigating into a subpage of the whole application. Then we're changing the title and text. And as you can see here in hot reloading, it's already updated, whereas on the live code reloading one, you can see that it's starting at the main entrance point. And this, I really want to highlight that. It's really completely changing the way how you code with QML. You just hit save, you do a lot of more iterations, a lot more faster, because you don't need to wait for anything to reload and for compiling and deployment steps. And overall, this really improves the quality of applications and cuts down the development time. We've done internal measurements in our development team, and also customer feedback reported that this feature alone really saves up to 10 to 20 hours per month per developer, that you can save time with that. So to summarize, is the standalone application works for all platforms, mobile, desktop, embedded, and also coming now for web via WebAssembly. The code reloading itself works for QML code only. So this is also one of the reasons why we really suggest to use QML as much as possible, as long as you can, not only in the initial prototyping phase of a development, but also then when you go into production, because it's just a lot faster and efficient to develop, because this whole code reloading topic saves a lot of time. Also, many of the features that are often done in C++, like writing custom list models or stuff like that, they are very nicely doable with QML components that already exist, that are written in C++ itself, and there's a nice QML API for that, like JSON list model, sort filter proxy model, or things like that. Also, if you have like custom C++ code or custom C++ backend code written, you can still use this feature for the QML development part. You can just compile your own code reloading version for your target devices, also for mobile, desktop, or embedded. Because staying focused is so important, I want to share some tips with you how to get more efficient, not just with Qt development, but general in work environments. The first topics I already mentioned before is to limit distractions. So make sure to deactivate all notifications that you're having on your PC and also on your mobile phone about emails, very important, to disable these Slack or Skype or any other messaging services. Because again, you're getting out of the focus with that. Instead, work on these like asynchronously. For example, check emails 2 times a day or 3 times a day. Check Slack a couple of times a day and not constantly, because this will pull you out of the tunnel repeatedly. If it's really urgent, your colleagues can call you or set up a meeting easily. Also, again, has to do with focus, really focus on just one task at once. Multitasking doesn't work for humans. For 1 or 2 hours, then take a break and repeat again. And really set up a highlight task per day that is like the most important for you to achieve for that day. And then you know you're progressing towards your goal every day a little bit. If this is very hard for your schedule, try to block the calendar for at least 2 hours a day. And this really will make you more efficient in your work scenarios. Also, if you have like any projects, always break it down to very small tasks so that they might be doable within 1 or 2 days. So no matter how big the project is, you always need to know, okay, what to do next, right? And so it is essential to really break down into smaller tasks that are very easily doable. Then you're also more motivated to get started with it. There is two really cool tools that I recommend for that. Of course, Jira as one of the leading software project management tools, which we are using for any bigger tasks. And then I can recommend Checklist, which is a nice task manager that is very easy to do, and for task management, very short ones as well. I was a big fan of like just plain text files as to-do lists, but Checklist is even way better than text files. It has the same advantages like a lot of keyboard shortcuts you can use. They promote it as the task manager for geeks, which is totally right. But it's a really cool tool to structure your day a little bit better. And also a lot of these tips you can find in this book that I kind of highly recommend, Make Time, by 2 Google employees. So let's now move on to the coding part of the development process. And one key tip I'd like to share is to use existing solutions as much as possible. You can usually spot the experience of a developer, how long time of research he spends into researching a problem or the requirements before getting the hands dirty and diving into the code. So how does the whole research process usually look like for Qt projects? Well, you start in your search engine, usually Google, hit up the search term, and then for like simple coding questions, Stack Overflow or Qt forums mostly pop up, which is a great resource for like smaller questions like anything specific to QString or any other classes of Qt. But it's generally not the best resource if you're looking for complete libraries or frameworks that might be there to help you solve your requirements. For these scenarios, then GitHub is better, and QPM, the Qt Package Manager, although they also have their issues because, for example, on GitHub, a lot of projects do not have like well-written README files or descriptions, and then you won't find them anywhere. So that's also what the Qt company found out. For those of you who watched the keynote today by Lars Knoll, he mentioned the release of a new product, the Qt Marketplace. And this is really, I think, a tremendously valuable thing for the whole Qt community and ecosystem, and for all the developers there, because it makes it a lot easier to actually find what existing solutions are there available. We're happy to be one of the initial launch partners of Marketplace, and I'll now show you some of the components that are useful for many of the software projects in the Qt ecosystem. So it's not only the code reloading, so the toolings that FELGO also offers, but it's also many components and APIs that you can use, which basically help you to save time and develop faster from desktop, mobile, and embedded platforms. And most importantly, they help you to write less code. So there is a pretty nice comparison that we did. There is actually 2 conference applications now in the app stores for the Qt World Summit 2019 application. The one was written with plain and vanilla Qt using Qt Quick Controls. On the left-hand side, the right was developed using Qt and the FELGO APIs on top of it. And when you're having a look at the code of these 2, you can see there is a really big gap between the 2. So it's more than 90% less code. So how is that possible? I'd like you to focus on the next slide on all the items on this list that is in orange. All the orange items are the ones that the FELGO APIs and components are on top of the Qt framework. So there's basically more than 200 that you can choose from, which is a tremendous source to really help you develop faster and solve the requirements that you're having quicker. One good starting point to do a research of what is available in the SDK is to have a look at the examples. One of them, which is open source and part of the FELGO SDK, is the conference. So you can check out the full source code, how we developed this application. There's also a Qt weather app called WTR in the app stores, which you can check out, also open source. And there is also a tool for Jira for time tracking, which is written with FELGO, which is also part of the SDK, and a lot more. So in total, more than 60. And some of the next slide, I just want to give you a quick overview of what the components are there that are most in used in most projects. Which ones are the best ones for your project really depend on your requirement and use case, but these ones are the ones that are the ones most used often. First is native UI, UX, and navigation. We've heard in the keynote a couple of times today that users are expecting like smartphone-like user experience on all their touchscreen devices, so also on embedded. Well, FELGO adds this on top of the Qt framework. So we have like in total, I think it's more than almost 100 UI controls on top of the Qt framework. And all of these really adapt to the underlying native platform. So these controls automatically adjust their styling to, for example, if you run it on an iOS phone or an Android phone, desktop, or embedded. It doesn't only change the styling, but it also modifies the navigation paradigms that are used. So for example, on iOS, you're having a swipe back gesture, whereas on Android, you have a physical back button that you can press. And the cool thing is this is all the same source code, so there's no if-else conditions, because the components itself take care of the platform and navigation differences for you. Also, if you need to develop for multiple screen sizes, the FELGO APIs make it possible to adapt their screen layout dynamically based on the screen size that is available. So as you can see here, there's a master detail view now popping up on the desktop platform. You can see on the left-hand side navigation, there is popping up some icons. On Android, the navigation drawer is behaving and looking differently. And all of this is happening automatically. You can even simulate different DPI, so density values, on your PC while you're developing, which is also useful in the whole development process. There's also a couple of native extensions that we have available, for example, push notifications, but also for analytics or telemetry, Firebase, and many more, which is just plug and play, like a QML item you can plug in. There is also push notification plugins available like that, available with a similar FELGO import. Then there's more advanced components like augmented reality ones and machine learning components. We have a demo of these also outside at our booth, so just come by and have a look yourself. And then also often used is the FELGO cloud components, which basically help you to have a cloud backend where you have data storage somewhere in the on your servers, and where you would like to synchronize between different devices seamlessly with the cloud. We've used this feature in the favorites feature in the conference app. So whenever you mark a talk as a favorite and you connect with a different device with the same user account, all of these talks are then automatically synchronized. And the cool thing is this also works offline, and it then syncs back up when you get first online again. So no need to develop this on your own. There's user authentication as well included, of course, and then more advanced features like leaderboards that you can add, so gamification features, or also a chat feature, which we used in the conference app, so you can chat with your colleagues ahead of time with the conference, or set up meetings when you are at the conference. This is how the chat is looking. Also working with push notifications, of course. All right, so now getting closer to one of the last steps in the development cycle, which is testing. So who of you guys is using any form of unit testing in your projects? All right, that's good. Almost all of them. And how many do you use UI testing? Yeah, a lot less. That's what I expected. Well, of course, for those of you who do not use any unit testing, do it. It will save you a lot of time in the long run, even though it might be a little bit time-consuming initially to set it up. We also highly recommend using UI testing for Qt applications, where Squish by FrogLogic is one of the leading providers. So it's a good tool to check out. It also works very well within the whole Qt development ecosystem. And speaking of that, testing makes most sense if you integrate this somehow into a CI/CD system, so in some form of build automation. Very similar to the testing approach, for those of you who do not use any build automation, start doing it now, because it will save you a lot of headaches and a lot of work in the long run. But we have experience, though, with a lot of customers and client projects, and also internally, as we have built a lot of projects with Qt, that the whole setup and maintenance of the development PCs and build machines is quite time-consuming and usually requires an own developer responsible or person responsible for that, the DevOps. So what we created is a solution where you can automatically build Qt projects very easily on your own servers or hosted on the FELGO cloud service by just the click of a button. So how this works is you connect your source code repository with it, and then you can do automated builds either with every push that you make on a daily basis or manual pushes. You get notified then via email or Slack if there's everything went through or if there are any issues with it. The cool thing is it also integrates nicely with automated deployment services. So you can upload your application then, for example, for the iOS App Store or for the Android Google Play Store without having needing to have like a local Mac Mini or anything like that in the office. It's also pretty awesome because you can very easily choose different Android NDK, SDK, and different iOS versions. And also you can choose from a drop-down list the different Qt versions that are existing. So you can test your application basically very easily how they are working with different Qt versions. And when you connect the automated testing also with that, you can do actually most of the automated testing and deployment steps automated very simply. There's one last topic I'd like to address, going back to the research process that's usually happening. And at this point is often overlooked as a way to actually improve the whole development workflow. And this is professional services. So there are a lot of different options for professional services available, of course, from the Qt company. You can ask them, and then there's also a lot of other service partners that you can ask help for. And in many scenarios, this really makes sense, especially if you have like trickier questions that you're having to overall help you actually reduce costs, because the chances that any of these partners already has solved the problem that you're having is quite high. So what we are offering is that we are providing a free quote. We are having a detailed look into the requirements that we're having, and we will check if we already had the problem before. And you can just use this as a free service, basically, to just ask us if we ever stumbled across a similar problem that you're having. Just make sure to check our booth outside. It's right over there. Regarding the code reloading features, you can try all of this for free here at felgo.com/Qt, or now at the end of November, coming with the new Qt Marketplace. Also, if you'd like to see this code reloading in action, we have another talk tomorrow where you present this in a live code session, where we show all of this stuff that you have seen now with GIFs and videos live in Qt Creator, how we develop the application step by step. That talk is going on tomorrow at 4 p.m. All right. So my colleagues in the back and here will hand out the application overview, the component overview that you've been before when you're leaving the room. So if you're interested, just take it back with you. All right. Thanks, guys. Yes. Yeah.
Why did you change your name from Replay to Felgo?
Because the name actually didn't reflect the product that well any longer. So we started with games like 10 years ago, 9 years ago. Then it was for 2 years that was the main focus. But then we shifted this focus actually to business applications. And since 2-3 years now, we also did a lot of work improving the product regarding embedded use cases and desktop as well. So the name play in the name just was misleading. And we got many questions. Oh, this is only for games. No, it's not. For 7 years already, not anymore. Thomas.
So, hi. You mentioned the hot reloading. I'm interested in how do you implement that technically? Like the state, like properties of is all stored in the QML engine somehow, and how do you restore that?
Well, it's tricky. Basically, we make a diff of the running application. We run a second application next to that and compare the states of that. And then we also do like source code line-based comparisons. So like a Git diff, for example, where you can see what kind of lines of code were changed and what were removed. So this works and actually in most of the cases, and especially the more often you save, the more likely it is that it is working. However, if you, for example, change like 30, 40 different components at once, then this is the time where a full reload will take place. But the more smaller steps that you're using, the more likely this is that it's working. And the cool thing is it also works when you're adding new components, delete a couple of them. So it's not just limited to changing properties. Yes. So there's 3 license tiers available. There's a free license available, which has most of the features included. And there's a startup license, very similar like the Qt company has, which is bound to a certain amount of annual revenue that the company is making. And then there is the enterprise license, so basically very similar to what the Qt company is offering. It works together with any of the Qt licenses, so you can use a commercial Qt license together with a Qt open source license. On the other hand, you can also use a FELGO free license with a commercial Qt license, so these are independent. The free license has a powered by FELGO splash screen in the beginning when you run it, and there is a couple of the plugins that I mentioned are not available in the, so are limited in the free license. But for example, code reloading is fully supported. All of that is runnable. Also, all the different platforms are supported, like mobile, desktop, and embedded. Okay. It's a long way to go.
Okay, I try.
The next question must be here then somewhere.
Yeah, you can get ready down there. Yeah, I got a question about, you started straight off with coding as the first step, but usually design and planning would be the first step if you want to be really productive.
Exactly. That's the
if I want to design and plan a Qt-based cross-platform application, how do I do that?
Good question. That really depends on what kind of target platforms you're targeting, right? If you want to support desktop, for example, that's a very different beast compared with all the touch-based devices. Yeah. So the good thing is that a lot of the APIs that we are having already takes care of the platform differences and the differences in the platform and the UI, UX that you're having with it. So for example, all our components on desktop have some hover effects, some mouse over effects. The controls look different on desktop than they do on mobile, etc., like that. Then contextually, it really depends on what kind of application it is. So also it really depends on what kind of input methods the user can do, if there's keyboard support needed, or if it's like more touch-based anyways. Generally, the more native input methods that you are needed, and the more platforms you are targeting, the harder it gets, right? At some point in time, it might be better to have an optimized UI than for mobile and embedded, and then an optimized for desktop and the web. But then many of the use cases, actually, you're fine with having a shared one. So we're doing our best to actually all the applications that I've shown before, like for example, the Jira time tracking application, that's really just a single code base for all the platforms. I think this is generally like the goal that we should have as cross-platform developers, to try to make it like usable as easily as possible across a range of platforms. And then there's, of course, a couple of design principles you can follow, like the material design style guide is pretty nice, which tells you exactly how big should the buttons be, etc., like that. The nice things is that the FELGO controls already include this by default. So Qt actually leaves you a lot of freedom how you're using the Qt quick controls and all the controls like that. So you need to basically do all of this research yourself. Our approach is more that it should be simple, actually, to make a good-looking default application, and then you can still fine-tune it later on. Qt is a little bit different there. You're all on yourself, and you can make a lot of mistakes, actually. There's like tons of details. For example, if you're clicking into a text boxed field, and if you're not careful that, for example, the virtual keyboard is popping up. You can see this in a lot of Qt applications, that this is cut somehow. The proper way to do it is to shift actually all the page content up, so it's all visible depending on the keyboard height. But then there is no property how to query in Qt the keyboard height, so we have one of that in one of our components. And there's like hundreds of things like these, and this sums up. That's why the time savings come into place. Yes.
Are in FELGO already icons included?
Yes, there's an icon font.
How many?
Font Awesome, I think, has almost 1,000 different icons in it.
Okay.
That's also, yeah, for prototyping especially, it's very nice to not having to research for icons or graphics every time, but just use what's there. Maybe in the very back. No. All right. Cool. Thanks, guys.